Registering your book. Big area, commonly overlooked. Very, very important. Why? Because your book's not legal if you don't register it. Now there's pros and cons for it not being legal, but we're going to go through the cons first. First thing that happens when you register a book is you register an ISBN number. Now an ISBN number basically legally registers your book. It puts it on a list of books, both in Australia, the list of all Australian books that have been published, and internationally. Now, that list is available if the general public want it, but no one generally looks at it, but that's not the point. The registration, ISBN Australia in Australia, for example, looks at it. If your book has been registered, it is legal, so it's protecting your personal IP and stopping someone taking the same title as your book. So for example, if you bring a book out, let's say last year, and you didn't register the book, and someone else brings out a book this year on a similar topic, uses the same title, and you've just done a year's worth of marketing and publicity for your book, but they buy theirs, because you forgot to register your title, and they can quite legally take the exact same title as you did. So registering is very important. Second thing registering does is give you a barcode number. Now I know that's obvious, but that's what makes your book saleable. If your book doesn't have a barcode number, it is not saleable. Now that's not black and white. I could stand up here and say, here's my book, and I'm going to sell it to you today. And someone might buy it. And I might turn it over and there might be nothing on the back of it. But if I want to sell it in any bookstore, online or offline, it must be legally registered and it must have a barcode. Now you might say, oh, my book's the Publicity book and I don't want it in any bookstores, I'm just going to take it with me everywhere I go and I'm going to give it to my clients or sell it to clients. That's fine. But how much credibility are you going to have with those clients when they turn it over and there's a white box or a space where normally they see a barcode? While it's only legal with a barcode, you want it there whether you want your book to be legal or not, just for credibility purposes. This one's a big one. Placing a copy in your state and national library. It's actually illegal not to place a copy of your book in the state and national library. Why? Because that's where the archives of this country and this state are kept. And if your book isn't in the archives, you're actually breaking Australian law because we no longer have a complete collection of everything that was ever published in Australia. The archives are incorrect, wrong, and invalid. Now, it's not heavily policed, but it is your publisher's responsibility to make sure they get a copy of your book, actually 2 copies because it's got to go to both libraries, out there. Once again, publisher's responsibility, but it's not the publisher that gets in trouble if something goes wrong. So you want to double check that your publisher has sent it in, because as I said, it's not heavily policed, but if you are caught having published a book and not put it into the Australian archives, you are penalised and there is fines involved. Important things to note about registering your book. There is more than one way to register it. Now, I don't say this because I'm going to list a million different ways, but just to know that there is more than one way. And what I mean by that is ISBN Australia, that's the head of registering in Australia. So someone could go, oh, can I just go to ISBN Australia and register my book? Yes, you can. But once your book's registered, you can't unregister it. So if that wasn't the right way for, say, for example, your distribution channel, you can't register it again, and you can't use that distribution channel. Which brings me to my next point. Some distributors won't distribute your book unless you register it with them. Now the reason is that there's different stages in registration. The things we've been through so far, ISBN, barcode, registering your title, first time author registration, also if you're a first time author, they're all standard things that ISBN Australia takes care of. Other things, if your book's going to be a series, you can register the series straight away, and ISBN Australia takes care of that too. But if you're doing anything else, you want to check with your distribution channel first. Because, for example, say you were going to distribute in US-UK market on Amazon. There's a certain rules and regulations for distributing on Amazon, and you need to have certain registration to do that. If you've already registered your book standard and you go to your distributor, they can't re-register your book. Particularly not if you printed it with the barcode that's the wrong barcode and ISBN number. They can, but they've got to reprint the books and that's a big cost for you, and you've got to actually cancel the original registration because it's wrong. So you want to check with your distribution channel first that the registration your book has, or that you plan to get your book, is the correct one. It's important to check with your printer as well first for the publishing side of things, the publisher, But it's most important to check with the distribution because there's not so many limits with publishers. Most publishers don't really care. They'll do it or you can do it, but there's lots of limits when it comes to distribution. Third thing is registration is final. You cannot change it. You can always erase it and replace it, but that's an expensive exercise and there's a time lag because you need to get rid of the old one before you can do the new one. But it's final, you're locked in. You can't change anything afterwards. Now when you register a book, you register a lot of standard things, you know, like the title and subtitle and author's name. Other contributors' names, any contributor to the book must be referenced. So your illustrator, for example, your photographer must legally be referenced, your publisher. But there's things people don't think about. So for example, the number of pages needs to be registered. So if you register your book before it's finished and you change the number of pages, your registration's invalid and you've got to go do it again. So it's really important to have your book finalised before you even think of registering. Now registering can be quite a quick process. It can take 24 hours. It can take up to 2 weeks. So you want to make sure everything's signed off because you don't know how long you're going to have to wait after that.